of the 4 layers of GI tract. Starting, either you start from outside to inside or inside to outside. From inside to outside, you will encounter 4 layers. The mucosa, this one, the submucosa, the muscularis, and the serosa, the outermost layer. Now, serosa is absent in the esophagus. Here's the esophagus. Serosa is absent. In place of serosa, what is present in the esophagus, outer layer, is called adventitia. Now, let us look at the different components of mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, and serosa. This is called the lumen. You know what lumen means? So lumens is surrounded by the mucosa as a unit. The innermost part of mucosa is the epithelium. Epithelium is made of epithelial tissue. And here, what the epithelium that you see, it's simple epithelium. Mostly simple columnar epithelium. But at different regions, like inside the mouth cavity, in the pharynx, in the esophagus, in the rectoanal junction, one layer is not enough, because those regions are subject to friction and abrasion, and for that, protection is needed. Which will provide protection? A multi-layered epithelium. What is that? Stratified squamous epithelium. So if you look at the mouth cavity, look at the mucous membrane lining the mouth cavity is made of stratified squamous epithelium. What type? Non-keratinized type. Okay, you have an idea of keratinized stratified squamous epithelium like epidermis. That is the dead cell layer, the top layer, not epidermis. The stratum corneum, the first layer of epidermis, is made of keratinized layer. There is no need for keratinized layer in the mouth cavity or the pharynx or the esophagus or in the anal region. But barring from those regions, it's simple columnar epithelium. Okay? Now, if you want to look at the reason why simple columnar, why simple epithelium? Because you have to know what functions are carried out there. What functions? Secretion and absorption. For absorption, for efficient absorption, if the distance is much, there is no efficient absorption. But if the distance is less, like one layer of cell, there will be very efficient absorption. Because in the GI tract, absorption occurs, especially in the small intestine and also the large intestine. And if there were multi-layered structure, multi-layered epithelium, should there be an efficient absorption? No. Can you find the reasoning? You can justify. And when you can justify with the structure, you understand very well. Okay? The epithelium may form some glands. In the mucosa, look here, glands. Epithelium here this is glands in submucosa. After the epithelium, there is connective tissue, layer of connective tissue. This is called lamina propria. In the lamina propria, you can find the mucosal glands or some mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue called mold. It's formed of lymphocytes. What do the lymphocytes do? What?
Fight off infection.
Yes, fight off infection. Yeah. So that is what kind of structure in our body? Defensive structure for defense. Why? They are located like this. Because pathogens can come with the food and they can easily bore through the tissue. They can invade the tissue. So they are kind of second line of defense. They're strategically located so that the infection can be prevented. Okay? And the outermost layer of mucosa is called muscularis mucosae, made of smooth muscle tissue, muscularis mucosae, the inner circular layer, the outer longitudinal layer, and the function of muscularis mucosae is to cause local foldings, is to increase the surface area for absorption and digestion. The next layer is submucosa, which is mainly made of areolar connective tissue. And this layer is muscularized. There are blood vessels. You can see the capillary networks here. And you can see here these blood vessels. Submucosa may contain glands. Submucosa also may contain lymphatic tissue. As you will see that if you concentrate on submucosa of small intestine, you should be able to distinguish the three different regions, the duodenum, the jejunum, and ileum. And that will be best on what you find in the submucosa. Just a minute. I think it's better to have lecture class in the lab too, so that there are some models. Histology, small intestine. Oh no. Can you please help me get that one? Thank you. Thanks. Oh. Submucosa contains also a portion of the nervous system called enteric nervous system. submucosal plexus or plexus of Meissner. So the neurons of plexus of Meissner, they control the activities of muscularis mucosae because these are smooth muscles. These are involuntary muscles. All right. Submucosa also connects the mucosa to the muscularis. Muscularis is the thickest region of the GI tract, formed of usually two sheets of muscle cells, outer longitudinal and inner circular. In between the longitudinal and circular, you will find a part of enteric nervous system called myenteric plexus or plexus of Auerbach. And the neurons, they control the activities of the muscle cells of the longitudinal and circular muscle layers. Okay? So they form what is called ENS or enteric nervous system. We discussed about that, the brain of the gut. And the outermost layer, of course, the activities of muscular race, as we saw in mixing and propulsion, that would be the result of the activities of the muscular race. The outermost layer is serosa, that has areolar connective tissue and simple squamous epithelium. Now, this serosa is absent in esophagus, and that is called adventitia. So, adventitia doesn't have any epithelium, but serosa has. Now, serosa, in all practical sense or senses, is nothing but the visceral peritoneum. Now, you need to go back to chapter 1 for that. You know what peritoneum is? You know what serous membrane is? Give me some examples of serous membrane.
You mean things inside the membrane?
No.
So where now? Inside the membrane?
No, not inside. I mean the membrane itself. What is serosa? You have learned about serosa in chapter with the heart, with the lung. What is the serous membrane that covers the heart? What? Pericardium. Yeah, that is serosa. What is the serous membrane that covers the lung? The pleura. So what is the serous membrane that covers or that are present in the abdominal cavity? It's peritoneum. That's why I told you this is nothing but, serosa is nothing but visceral peritoneum. Peritoneum is the largest serous membrane in the body. Peritoneum, so serous membrane is a double wall membrane. There are two layers, parietal serosa, visceral serosa. In case of heart, the parietal serosa is the parietal pericardium, and visceral serosa is visceral pericardium. With the lungs, parietal pleura, visceral pleura. So here is serous membrane or serosa. The term serosa means the visceral peritoneum. What do you have? Parietal layer and visceral layer. What is in between? Peritoneal cavity. Is the cavity empty or is filled with fluid? Is filled with fluid called serous fluid. In this case, peritoneal fluid. Yeah? Serous fluid with the heart. What is that? Pericardial fluid. With the lungs, pleural fluid. So, the organs that are covered by serosa, those are called viscera, visceral organs. Like stomach is a visceral organ. Okay? Heart also. There's a viscera in the thoracic cavity. Viscera in the abdominal cavity will include stomach, pancreas, like urinary bladder, also viscera. It's covered by peritoneum. Do you get that? So these are the 4 layers of GI tract that you need to know. You will also look under the microscope. I have a microscope here. I will bring slides and I will be able to show you. That's why having lecture in the lab is much, much better. Since yours is a small class, only 1 section, same lab section, I have the luxury to bring you here. Okay, you get that? So let us go over all these 4 layers. And let's see how I arrange that in my lecture notes. So the time I took off in between, I'm going to make it good here, and then I will let you go to have some break, and then we'll come back for the lab, isn't it? Is that acceptable? All 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, all 11 of you are here. That's great. And even here, the projector is better than the lecture, isn't it? It is. Look here. Histology of the alimentary canal or GI tract. Basic arrangement of layers in the GI tract from inside out includes mucosa, submucosa, muscularis, and serosa. Epithelium, non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium in the mouth cavity, pharynx, esophagus, and anal region. In stomach, small and large intestines, simple columnar epithelium. A tissue is made of cells, different cells that form the epithelium. These cells include mucus secreting, enzyme secreting, hydrochloric acid secreting, and some enteroendocrine cells that secrete hormones. Now, for your information, endocrine system. What is the meaning of endocrine? Do you have any idea? Endocrine, when endocrine is noun, endocrine means hormone. A circulating hormone, a circulating hormone. So, when we talk about endocrine system, the first thing that comes to mind will be hormone. Okay, a cell that secretes hormone is called endocrine cell. What is the meaning of enteron? Like gastroenterology. Enteron. Enteron means gut. Enteron means gut. That. Who? Someone left? No. Not from us, huh? No?
No.
Yes,
Yeah.
probably
Just had a phone call.
Okay. you'll have difficulty in getting because it's locked. But anyway, enteron, enteroendocrine. Entero comes from enteron, gut. So a cell from the lining of the gut that secretes hormone will be enteroendocrine cells. You are going to learn several enteroendocrine cells, like the G cell in the stomach. It secretes hormone gastrin. Yeah, hormones help regulate digestive processes, these hormones. Like gastrin, secretin, cholecystokinin, yeah, etc., etc. All right, lamina propria has three components: areolar connective tissue, adhering the epithelium to two lower layers, and then system of blood and lymph vessels for absorption and transportation of food, and then muscularis mucosae. Oh. And also nerves and sensors. The lymph system is a part of the MALT. MALT, that's an acronym, mucosa-associated lymphatic tissue, that monitors and produces an immune response to pathogens that pass with food. And then muscularis mucosae, that causes local folding of the mucosal layer consisting of smooth muscle fibers, inner circular and outer longitudinal. They also increase the surface area for digestion and absorption. Next is submucosa. Submucosa is note that the different things that are found, like I'm going to show you in this model. This is typically 3-in-1. These finger-like projections are called villi. And that is a signature feature of small intestine. Like this one is also small intestine. But small intestine is very long. If I were to describe first the small intestine, I would have described that as long intestine. The long intestine and short intestine, but you know, people will not listen to me. That is a joke. Okay, this is submucosa. Look here, gesundheit. Here is the serosa muscularis, submucosa, and from here to here mucosa. This submucosa, it contains several features. You will not find all these features in a particular region of small intestine, because this is 3-in-1. Have you heard of 3-in-1, 2-in-1? Yeah? Come on. You know, there was an age called Walkman. Do you know Walkman? Walkman age? You would listen to tape, you know, Walkman. And that was also, you know, that had radio also. So radio and Walkman, it is 2-in-1. You get that? So 3-in-1, like a tape recorder, a radio, and TV, 3-in-1. This is 3-in-1. Meaning, if you consider some features and ignore others, then it would be one structure. Like, if you think of this is a lymph nodule in the submucosa called Peyer's patch, then this is ileum, okay? Ignore this one here. These are glands called Brunner's glands. These are present only in duodenum. So this is duodenum. And if you can ignore this pious patch and the duodenum, this Brunner's gland, then this becomes ileum. Sorry, this becomes jejunum, like this one. This one, the submucosa, does not contain any gland or any lymphatic nodule. So this can represent jejunum. Look at that. So here, I keep losing that the toy. Why? That laser. Where did I keep the laser? Oh. Oh, this is here. It's hiding. Consists of very connective tissue and binds the mucosa to the muscularis, highly vascular, containing a portion of the submucosal plexus, plexus of Meissner. I talked about that. Part of enteric nerve supply to smooth muscle cells of muscularis mucosae and blood vessels. May also contain glands and lymphatic tissue. Examples: Brunner's glands in duodenum and pious patches in ileum. Jejunum does not have Brunner's glands or pious patches. Okay? So when you are going to look under the microscope, the jejunum, the ileum, and the duodenum, you'll be able to see. Lastly, now this is the third layer. Muscularis is also called muscularis externa because we have another muscularis, muscularis mucosae. Your book has only muscularis, but there are some other textbooks that have this term muscularis externa because it is the outermost layer. Okay. Mouth, pharynx, and superior part of esophagus contains skeletal muscle, producing voluntary swallowing. You can do that, you can demonstrate to yourself. Yeah, pretend that you have something inside your mouth and you try to swallow. Do you feel a lump? That is due to swallowing. That is due to voluntary swallowing. Oh, okay, anyway. It's now lecture, you can have it. In the lab, we do not allow drinking or eating. So you can put in your bag. Swallowing is also called deglutition. We will talk about the voluntary and involuntary phases of swallowing later on. And the skeletal muscles are present inside the mouth cavity, inside the pharynx, and superior part of the esophagus. So look here, if this is the esophagus, this is coming from pharynx, and the esophagus opens into where? Not in the mango, okay, that I drew. Okay. If you have 3 equal divisions, this part you will find only skeletal muscle. Here you will find skeletal plus smooth muscle, and the last 1/3 only smooth muscle. You get that? And this skeletal muscle that would produce this voluntary swallowing. And also the external anal sphincter, thank God, that is skeletal. External anal sphincter. Otherwise, the muscularis is formed of smooth muscle. In the rest of the tract, it is formed of smooth muscle fibers, generally in 2 sheets, inner sheet of circular fibers and outer sheet of longitudinal fibers. But there is an exception. Stomach has an additional oblique layer, that is the innermost oblique layer. What does it do? It provides involuntary contractions that would result in peristalsis and segmentation that help break down food and physically mix it with digestive secretions and propel it along the GI tract. The major nerve supply includes my enteric plexus, the plexus of Auerbach, which controls the motility of the GI tract. 3 more minutes, okay? And then I'll let you go for break, half an hour break. Let us look at the innervation of the GI tract, and that will be done by the enteric nervous system. And you have a nice diagram in your book, and that is 24.4. Look at this. So enteric nervous system consists of plexuses that are located in the GI tract. One in the muscularis, another in submucosa. So muscularis will be my enteric plexus, and submucosal plexus in the submucosa, or plexus of Meissner, plexus of Auerbach. Now I should tell you that neurons are classified. Neurons, or the nerve cells, they're classified into 3 groups, or 3 types, not groups, 3 different types, on the basis of the direction of propagation of nerve impulses. And that way, these are sensory or afferent neurons, number 2, called interneurons or association neurons, and motor or efferent neurons, yes, efferent. Look how this is a sensory neuron with the sensors here, the sensor receptors. So anything happens here in the mucosal epithelium or in muscularis mucosae, that will be picked up by the sensory neuron. The sensory neuron can directly innervate a motor neuron, or directly synapse, not innervate. I'm sorry, I withdraw my word, not innervate. Synapse, or an interneuron that is located in the myenteric plexus. So the arrow should be this direction or this direction. And the motor action will be by this motor neuron. The command may come also from here, that is in the myenteric plexus via the interneuron. And this interneuron, you can see either synapses in the submucosal plexus or inside the myenteric plexus with the motor neuron. And this motor neuron innervates the longitudinal and circular smooth muscle layers of the muscularis. Okay? This is the organization of enteric nervous system. Right? We have a little bit left. That is the last part of that is serosa. The serosa is a layer of those portions of GI tract, that are suspended in the abdominopelvic cavity, which is visceral peritoneum. The visceral membrane is made of connective tissue and simple squamous epithelium, and serosa is absent in the esophagus. Instead, there is adventitia, composed of areola connective tissue. Okay, I will let you go.